Hello, everybody. So, I want to talk about something real quick. And I'm going to state my credentials pretty much up front. But before I get to that, I just want to put this into perspective. Okay. I understand everyone wants to be a Don. I understand everyone wants to go be the coolest thing they can be, the most alpha, the most top tier, however you want to put it. But let's scale back and kind of just take a look at who we are, what we're currently capable of, and what's most likely to happen. So, getting that out of the way, what's my credentials? Who am I to say anything? Well, I was in the US Navy for 2.5 years. Got forced out, didn't do anything cool, crazy, didn't go see combat, didn't do anything like that. The only thing was I learned how to shoot a pistol better. In fact, I didn't even fire a fucking M4. So, like, I don't even have any serious training or capabilities. I'm just slightly above average to, your normal Call of Duty player. Okay. When I got out, I happened to just find myself over the years with people who were special operation roles or fucking, U.S. Marshals. I had someone who was a federal air marshal. That was pretty cool. Couple CIA, English is hard people. All these cool people, all right? And they'd give me some stories. Some of them did some like actual badass shit that I'm surprised isn't like in a book or a movie or something. Some of them didn't really do anything that crazy, but they had an incident happen, blah blah blah, and they like learned some life lessons from it. And most of these guys kind of put it like this, like a life lesson type thing, where they took a situation that had happened, survived it, obviously, and most of them, because they were operating in that higher tier environment, had to do a self analysis and review after the mission or operation. Or sometimes it was just like a literal, like something happened while they're on the streets and they're not even in uniform or whatever like that. You know, that self evaluation review is really important because it took what was bullshit, what was just force fed down our throats when we were in boot camp or fucking buds or, any of all this shit, and what is fucking practical. Okay. With all the vet drama that's going on right now on GunTube, YouTube, all that shit like that, I think a lot of people are kind of getting lost in the sauce of like, hey, well, because this thing worked for me this one time in, GWAT era, early years, that's the most practical thing, period. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not going to discredit anyone, and I'm not going to say you're not fucking relevant anymore. What I am going to say is what's happening is a lot of people are very influenced by these decisions, and they're going and they're training and they're doing all these crazy things that are probably never going to happen. And unlike some of these people who are continuously doing these operations, they don't have an incident that's going to allow them to pull from all of their education and finalize like, hey, this is the singular thing that worked, this is what I need to work on, this is the thing that's going to carry me into the future. So what I really would like people to start doing is roll it back and start from square one. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how many fucking USPA fucking medals you have. I don't care how many fucking trophies you have. I don't care how many fucking ribbons you got on your rack. I don't care. Start back from zero and work your way back up. If you've been doing any of this stuff, whether it's gun tube, special operations, even if you're just doing fucking regular average GI, like fucking, I'm sure you're gonna have a faster way to get back to your progress than you would have someone who's completely new and starting from actual zero. That's kind of the point. Start from zero and work your way back up and see what is actually maintaining that linear progression upwards. Because that's at the end of the day what we're all trying to do. We're just trying to be better. We're trying to be Dons. All right? Whether we're capable, sorry, it's snowing really bad and fucking truck must be struggling. What the fuck? All right, sorry about that. Whether you are a top tier guy or not, the point is when you're learning and you've learned efficiently, that's when you can teach. And that's what I kind of think is a problem right now. I think way too many people are teaching who shouldn't be teaching or who are not the best educator. Now, this is something I can speak on, okay? Bear with me for a second. I'm not trained in any tactical course whatsoever. When I was in the Navy, I was the most recent graduate of BMTCP. And when I got to my command, I had to start teaching people who had been hospital corpsmen for a while how to do XYZ updated medical thing. So I got a pretty unique role for being an E2. I was teaching E5s all the way up to fucking E9s on basic medical shit. And I even taught a couple of officers. Granted, they were like fucking ensigns and, butter bars and shit, but it doesn't matter. Like I taught people who were well outside my own time in the Navy and outranked me and still was educating them. And that was a role that I was forced into. It wasn't because someone saw, hey, you're a good teacher, you're going to do this. It was like, hey, you're the most recent fucking graduate, go and do this. And what do? You just do what you're fucking told. So I learned through trial and error how to communicate effectively with these people who didn't want to hear anything from a fucking E2 who didn't know shit about being in the Navy. And I did my job. Outside of that, I have taught music both in professional institutions and independently for about a decade. So when it comes to educating and teaching people, I'd like to think I have a pretty good skill set in that. Does that mean I'm going to teach you how to be special operations guy alpha? Absolutely not. What I can say is if you give me a material list or an outline of things that need to get done, I could probably convey that idea, the baseline boiled down idea, to someone more effectively than someone who may not have the time in when it comes to educating others. That doesn't mean that they are bad, skilled individuals. They could just not be the best educational individual. So, if we start back at zero, when we do this progression, we're going to quickly weed out what was bad advice and what was actually good advice. And then after we've done that, maybe that's when we can evaluate and be like, okay, maybe this is really what I should be teaching. Okay. Now, a thing that comes to this, and I'm probably going to make a separate video on this. I see a lot of people who are teaching a lot of rifle stuff, and I understand the whole Minuteman concept, but I'm going to throw something at you guys. So I currently live in a banned state, and trust me, I fucking hate it. I love how I moved back to the state literally months before they enacted it. So it wasn't even like I knew it was on the horizon. Come back here, next thing you know, I have to give up weapons, otherwise I'm a fucking felon. And I'm like, joy. But handguns are still relatively accessible. You can still get your concealed carry, and you can get your fucking firearm identification card, so shit like that. So now I'm thinking okay, I'm sure I'm not the only human being who lives in this fucking shit state and actually wants to train and be prepared and capable. But our options are pretty limited. Handguns are really all we're going to have access to if you live in a certain portion of our state. If you live down south, yeah, rifles are more accessible, blah, 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 is what it is. But it's not just my state that has that. There's quite a few states that have these weapon restrictions. And even if they don't have weapon restrictions, think about it from a logical standpoint. How many of us are going to have our fucking rifles in fucking sling bags or in our fucking trucks? I kind of hate to point this out to you guys, but you're kind of the minority. And if you're not the minority, you are definitely not a big representation of firearm owners. Okay? That's going to be a hard pill to swallow, and I understand. Because I think it would be a lot more beneficial to society if we did have more riflemen in that concept. Regardless, if handguns are the thing that have been dictated for us as the self-defense tool in the civilian market and civilian world in general, a lot of our training should focus on handguns. And you probably don't want to hear that either. You probably want to be not even fucking alpha. You just want to be competent as a rifleman. Because when the shit hits the fan, you're probably going to be using your rifle more than your handgun. But that's another thing that I'm kind of touching on here. How quickly do you think society is going to collapse? Because it's documented through history that it's not as quick as we think. And I can tell you, if you're perceiving things ahead of time and you decide to start carrying a rifle and there is law, even a shred of it, you're going to be in jail and you're going to be in a worse position to fucking, ride out the apocalypse, so to speak, in a fucking jail cell. So we have to really take stock as consumers, because that's what we are. We're consumers, and we're watching content from people who may or may not have biases due to paychecks or, you know, biases in perspective, whatever it is. All right. I'm not calling out anybody specifically, because I like to think of myself as a relatively educated human being who tries to see both perspectives. All right. Those who agree with me and those who don't. And then I try to find the flaws of why don't I agree with them. And I learn through being a human being that either I'm in the wrong or I'm validated. And that is wrong. And I shouldn't really consider that. But I can still learn. I can still grow. And there are some people who I think are really good educators who are pushing the wrong thing, and vice versa. I think there are some people who are pushing the right thing and they're fucking unintelligent with how they get that information out there. So that's why I think this is a pretty applicable challenge for most people. Start from zero, all right, in whatever aspect of your life you want, all right? But obviously, I'm talking tactical, so start from zero. Start from basic gun handling safety, all right? And work your way up. Get back to where you currently think you are. And who knows, maybe that's a reality check. Maybe you're not as competent as you thought. Maybe it's beyond a humbling experience. Maybe you increase your confidence in yourself because you're further ahead than you thought. But if you hadn't done a challenge like this, you wouldn't have found out. Because I'm going to tell you something that even though I haven't experienced, again, through my experiences, the fortunate in my life people that I've met and encountered, you don't learn unless it's actually happened. And you don't want to be in a gunfight to learn if everything you fucking learned worked. You don't want to be in a situation where your city or your neighborhood's falling apart and all of the stuff that you were learning to prep, all the goodies that you kept by weren't the most effective or beneficial things for you. So we have to do something which basically simulates stress. It's what a lot of these training camps and a lot of these gun tubers are pushing, is you need to simulate stress. You need to desensitize yourself to stress so you can operate. Now, I've had a substantial amount of trauma in my life, which has desensitized me to stress. And being a touring musician, being an educator and speaking in front of hundreds, if not thousands sometimes, I have the overall lower stress levels of, people who have been doing certain actions for a period of time. I'm not saying I'm capable of going and doing alpha tier bullshit. I'm not fucking saying that. Okay. What I'm saying is, because my stress has been desensitized to a point where I can operate in a stressful environment with more calmness, I know a little bit more about what I'm capable of and what I'm not capable of. I was also a medical professional, and I worked in the pandemic, the plandemic, as I like to call it, so you can see my perspective on it. And it was a very stressful time at all the hospitals I was working at. And as weird as it sounds, that's kind of what started this whole concept, because I was a hospital corpsman in the U.S. Navy, where I had an expanded scope of practice. But in the civilian world, I basically had to work my way back from zero, because I had no certification, no training. And if it wasn't for something like a pandemic, I wouldn't have been able to expedite my education and my scope of practice otherwise. So, again, does all of that translate to these tactical cool things that these Green Berets, Navy SEALs, pararescue guys are all fucking talking about? No. But that's kind of why I want to throw the challenge to them as well. Because are you going to seriously tell me if they've been doing something for 15, 20 years and they're that high speed and that action, that they haven't learned bad stuff? Who knows? Maybe it's so ingrained into them and they're so good at what they do, it doesn't hold them back. Or it would not hold them back because of their overall time in. But what if they trained and educated someone the wrong way or the wrong tool, and they don't have the experience? They don't have the physical prowess. Maybe that's setting someone up for failure and they didn't even intend to. So go back to zero. Learn from the absolute basics and scale yourself up. And you should be getting back to where you feel you are in a relatively rapid period of time. And if you don't, that means you've learned a lot of bad stuff and you need to start re-educating and reorientating what your modern goal should be. And honestly, I think the whole tactical community that's going on right now, and that's like really in vogue because we all think the world's about to fucking end, I think that's a great place to start. Because I'm kind of really tired of all these people saying do XYZ thing. And again, this is a me problem, all right? And I'm recognizing this is a me problem, so that's why I'm not calling out specific people. But some of these things aren't applicable. And I know I'm not the minority here. I'm your average fucking Joe watching content on YouTube. If I thought that I was capable or good enough, I would be putting out videos like that. I would be training and educating people to do that. And I would actually be going and doing those things. So I'm going to say I'm more of the average human population rather than the content creators who are putting this stuff out. But even someone who has such a limited amount of knowledge or experience should be able to start from zero and work their way back up in an expedient amount of time. And for people who are professionals in that aspect, it should be substantially faster for you. And all you're doing is just reviewing and seeing, is everything that I have been taught and potentially currently educating actually correct? Is it going to help me succeed in every mission? Or is it only going to help me succeed in XYZ missions? And if that's the case, then what am I lacking and what do I need to make up for those Y and Z operations? So, just a potential thing to throw out there. If anyone actually does that, please give me some feedback, because I'm going to instigate that in my own life as well. I'm actually in the process of taking a fucking handgun course again, because even though I know I can shoot pistols, I got expert in the Navy, I want to establish that confidence so I can move on to another skill set that I'm lacking in, something like rifle marksmanship. Only shot rifles, semi-automatic rifles in the civilian world. I know I need work in those things. However, before I move on to those things, what did I just say? What's realistic to my situation where I'm at in life? I'm going to be carrying a handgun all the time. So I want to make sure I'm actually confident in my handgun capabilities before I move on to something that is an extra in my life currently. If I move down south in this state, or I go to another state where rifles are more prevalent, or there's more distance in between and I need something that can give me that range, then I'm going to expedite that process. I'm going to fucking start learning how to use a rifle. But until that happens, that's not where I need to focus myself. And I'm self-aware enough to realize where I need to put effort in. I'm not saying you as an individual are not. What I am saying is, when you have so much content being thrown at you and so many conflicting ideas and so many ideas that are getting now shot down by other veterans in the community or other gun tubers, you're probably like, what the fuck do I do with myself? Here's what you can do. Start back from zero, work your way back up, see where your linear progression level is, and find out what mistakes are there. There's going to be some, I guarantee you. Even if you've only taken one course, or you have one experience from being in one specific branch in the military, I guarantee you were taught something wrong. What thing was taught wrong, and what did you learn to overcome it with? And if you never learned anything, and you just keep operating with that thing that is wrong, at least now you have a better direction of where to go. So, that's my 2 cents on it. Let me know if you guys do anything. I'll keep you updated with that stuff as well. I got some more videos that are in the pipeline. I just don't really have the time anymore, and hopefully I can fix that. So, stay safe, stay tuned.